Hello, everybody, and welcome to this YouTube Live. I am going to share some slides on the screen here. Okay, so welcome, and I will make these slides full screen in just a moment here. I am going to share with you something very interesting, which I was not planning on sharing or going live with today, but it is a transmission, a channeled transmission that I received in my morning meditation at sunrise time this morning. And it came through so clearly and so poignantly. I was really moved by it. And so I felt very strongly from the time I came out of that meditation that I should share it with you today. And so here we are. And I will say that I do not even necessarily agree with everything that came through in this transmission, or maybe I should say I don't know how I feel about some of the things. It's talking about things on a very cosmic level, very big picture view, far beyond, just the earth. And there are a couple of themes that come up in it, which I don't know how I feel about, and I'm curious if you can write in the comments. I'd love to know what you think about it. One of those themes is that humanity, it's the idea, the concept that humanity is a grand experiment. And, of course, this theory has been shared before by others in different ways. And who knows? It makes us uncomfortable, or it makes me uncomfortable, at least I can say, because it brings up the question of free will. And do we really have free will? And I know that in some of the writings, for example, from Dolores Cannon, this topic is addressed, and it is stated that all the souls who participate in the experiment chose to do so and wanted to be a part of the project. So that can bring us some more comfortability with that idea. The other idea that was presented in this transmission is that humans were designed to be one of the most high intelligence physical beings. And I kind of fundamentally disagree with that, because I believe that the trees, for example, are far wiser than I could ever be, and I believe that the mountains and the oceans are far more intelligent than our world leaders of today, for example. So again, I don't know how I feel about that, but this transmission just came through so clearly and so strongly that I feel it's important to share. And so I welcome your comments in the comments below the video. Tell me what you think of it. Tell me if there are certain lines you agree with, certain lines you disagree with. I have put it all in text on the slides here so that you'll be able to see the words as I'm reading them. And you'll see I'm off video today because I just felt that the words are more important than my face in this transmission. So just as an introduction, in case you don't know me and you're watching this video on my channel for the first time, I am Jocelyn Starfeather, and I'm very happy to meet you here. And I am the founder of Sacred Planet. I'm a visibility coach for visionary entrepreneurs, an astrologer, and many other things. And my mission is to guide everyone who would like to be a part of the Sacred Planet community in breaking free from everything that has held you back in the past. And so it's my great joy to do this work. You can learn more about my work on my website, which is wearesacredplanet.com. And on my YouTube channel, which if you're watching this video, you have found my channel. Be sure to explore the other videos as well. I have so much that I love sharing with you, always. And also, if you're new to my community, or maybe if you're in my community but haven't gotten this free gift yet, I have a free gift for you today. It's called Awaken Your Connection with Ancient Egypt. Find your power in the magic of long ago. And it's fairly aligned with what will come through in the transmission today in interesting ways. It's a video workshop that I recorded that I think you will really, really love. So you can see the link for it on the slide here. And also I will post this link below the recording in the description field once the recording is complete. Okay, well, let's dive in. And as I mentioned, please write in the comments whenever you feel inspired to do so. If you agree with what is said, if you disagree, just know that none of this is necessarily my own opinion. This is what came through in my channel transmission that I received today. It came through very, very strongly, and I felt very compelled to share it with you all. And I would love to hear what you think about it. All consciousness that leads to life, begins in the great central sun. Also called the singularity, this is the region of the universe that all other galaxies spin around. It is the source of all the light that we know, for the light of the stars and the suns in other galaxies proceeds from this light of the great central sun. When we are born, our souls emerge from this great, unfathomably vast cauldron of light. And when we die, we go back into that light of the great central sun. When we are in that light, it is pure love, pure oneness, pure knowing and understanding of all. There is no good or bad. There is no masculine or feminine. There is no right or wrong or forward or backward when we are merged with the great central sun. But in order for life to exist, we had to emerge from the great central sun and enter into a structure of polarities, because life is born of polarity. Life is born from masculine and feminine. Life is born from light and dark. And so in order for the miracles of life to exist, we had to emerge from that great cauldron of light and begin to exist as part of the structure of physical reality. We had to come out into the structure of cells with their inner functions that were designed to keep themselves alive. Living cells combined into more and more complex organisms that could live on all the different planets that support life. The life that we know here on Earth is very different than the life that is known on other planets and in other galaxy systems. The form of life that we know here on planet Earth is so beautiful and precious, with its jewel-tone blue and green planet, and the sweetness of water, and the heights and depths of love and loss. Here on Earth, we are mythical beings tied to the ever-turning structure of the stars and constellations above that foretell our destinies. The fate of every one of us is intricately interlaced and interwoven with the fate of every other. And humanity emerged on Earth. Humanity was built as a great experiment in the cosmos. For those who are the keepers of wisdom in our universe and who can travel in and out of the great central sun at will, have been busy at work, creator beings as they are. They have been creating many different types of life forms so they can find out what would be the optimal form of life. What would be the form that could bring into being creations even beyond what the creator imagined? And humanity is one of these grand experiments. For when humans were created, the DNA of the highest creatures that had evolved on Earth, the primates, was combined with the light and the alchemy of the highest DNA from the furthest reaches of the cosmos. This was done to create beings that were meant to have the highest intelligence of any physical life forms, that were meant to have the vastest understanding of not only their own planet and its precious role in the Milky Way galaxy, but also to have knowledge of the highest intelligence of the cosmos. These unique beings were designed to understand the functions of the great central sun and the functions of all the other galaxy systems and nebula systems and constellational systems. And so 200,000 years ago, humans were created. The ones who created us stayed with us for a long time. There was so much wisdom to pass down. There was so much training to do. But at a certain point, those who created us decided that we needed to find our own path. Having given us the technology, having given us the wisdom that we would need to succeed, about 150,000 years ago, they left. And they no longer inhabited Earth alongside us. But the tales of their strength and power and knowledge and their stature as gods among us lives on in our mythology and in our DNA memory. And so humans took this knowledge and technology that they had been given and built up their civilizations. And in the vast great aeons of time on Earth, which is different than time in other places among the galaxies, humans built up and destroyed many civilizations. There have been 4 great waves of human civilization since that time 150,000 years ago. But every time that human civilization rises to a particular degree of success and wealth and technology, something happens that is very detrimental to the plan. What happens is that the humans, perhaps because of their biological nature, having started as biological living beings that had evolved upon the earth and had to earn their survival amidst the polarized nature of reality, the humans seem to fall back into survival level fear each time. And this leads to greed and ego and appropriation of resources, and leads ultimately to the downfall of the civilization. And in fact, in some cases, the higher intelligence beings from the great central sun have had to come and wipe clean the great slate of the earth because it was going in far too catastrophic of a direction. When humans conceive of things like weapons of mass destruction or other terrible technology that is meant to cause massive levels of harm, which are created and invented only because of unnecessary survival level fears, those beings of immense intelligence from the great central sun have to step in. They cannot stand by and see us destroy our entire planet and possibly even other planets around it. And so they have to step in and wipe the slate clean. And then humans can begin again. For humans are very strong and resilient. We were built to withstand great trials and survive. And so humans have rebuilt their civilizations 3 more times since the great global civilization that was originally built up, starting 150,000 years ago. There have been 3 more great global risings of civilization. There was one around 120,000 years ago that eventually had to be ended because of greed and ego and appropriation of resources and the harm that these fearful qualities cause. There was another truly magnificent civilization that rose from about 50,000 years ago until 36,000 years ago. This was a civilization that held tremendous magic. They had a capacity to modify reality using only their thoughts. It was a magical society, a global civilization where all nations were connected in peace most of the time. The land masses at that time were very different than the land and continents that we know today. There were great centers of culture in what we now know as the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And these were called Atlantis and Lemuria, as well as other more ancient names. They flourished for many tens of thousands of years. Their highest point was from 50,000 years ago to 36,000 years ago. But the magic began to be used for evil. And in a great twist of fate and despair, the humans turned again back to fear. Why is it that humans turn back to survival level fear even when they have reached great heights of development? And so the great ones that live in the great central sun had to wipe the slate clean yet again with a great disaster that befell the earth from out in the cosmos. This occurred about 36,000 years ago. There were very few survivors. The survivors that did exist were deeply traumatized by the catastrophic events that occurred and by seeing their civilizations decimated. It was difficult for them to carry on, but they held the knowledge of the greatest mysteries of the earth and cosmos. They held the understanding of light magic, and they had seen the destruction that dark magic could wreak. For ultimately, this was how fear had been expressed in their now decimated civilization. Dark magic, black magic, as certain people, overcome by greed and fear, tried to hold all of the power in their own hands. And so those survivors banded together in certain safe places around the planet and began to gather their resources once again. They held great magic in their consciousness and in their hands and in their life force energy. And so they set about building structures from the great stones of the earth so that when and if the great cataclysms occurred again, all of civilization would not be destroyed because these stone structures would be so strong that they would hold steady no matter what happened to the surface of the earth. Eventually, over time, over thousands of years, they were able to rebuild their great civilizations of Atlantis and Lemuria, as well as other centers of civilization around the world, which we now know as Peru and Egypt and India and the United Kingdom and many others. They rebuilt their great civilizations throughout North America as well, sites that have not yet been discovered in our world today, but which do exist far beneath the ground level in North America. They rebuilt everything, and they made certain to build it from their hearts. For they had seen that when fear comes in, it is because we have forgotten how to connect with our hearts. When we are truly connected with our hearts, there is no fear. And the love and oneness that are the key principles of all creation, as it emanates from the great central sun, are the strongest forces of all. So as long as the civilization is connected with its heart, and the people within it are connected with their hearts, no harm can befall them. These great destructions would not occur. The people who proceeded from the disaster 36,000 years ago understood this, and they made sure to build their new civilization based upon the principles of the heart and love and oneness. With this knowledge and the tools that they had carried in their consciousness and in their hands and in their own life force, they built up glorious civilizations once again. These civilizations flourished from approximately 30,000 years ago until about 12,000 years ago. During this 18,000-year time span, there was great peace and harmony on the earth for the majority of that time. However, as the technology advanced, and as the humans felt themselves possessing greater and greater power, the fear came back in. And ultimately, the fear created all of the same devastation that had occurred 36,000 years ago. Black magic rose into the minds and even the hearts of many people who used it to usurp power from others so that they would be all powerful, so that they would hold more of the resources. They also used their black magic to make changes to the earth, alterations to the earth that were far too significant to support the future of life. The beings from the great central sun were very sad to see this, for the civilization on earth had been growing so beautifully for so many thousands of years. It had seemed that perhaps the humans would succeed this time in creating the kind of pinnacle civilization and pinnacle way of life that the ones who live in the great central sun know is possible for us. But the greed, the ego, the fear, the mistrust of others, the mistrust of their own destiny took hold in the minds of humans. They could no longer properly connect with their heart, and the damage from their dark technology became too great. And so the earth had to be cleansed and cleared once again. Great comets and asteroids struck our planet, melting the polar ice caps and causing global catastrophic flooding that raised the sea levels by unfathomable depths. The cities were drowned. The floods even reached and superseded many of the highest mountaintops at their highest points. There were some, a very small number of humans, who had been given foreknowledge of the catastrophe and who had built boats and who were able to survive. As the floodwaters began to recede, they were able to climb out of their boats and live in the highest areas of the world. They were able to live atop Mount Kailash in Tibet. They were able to live at the tops of the Andes Mountains in Peru. Over the years, they established surprisingly successful societies in these very high altitude locations. They had to, for everything else was covered with water. These were the first societies that were able to rebuild after the flood. Over hundreds of years, the floodwaters receded more and more, eventually leveling out around 400 feet above the previous levels. And so even as the waters abated, they still did not uncover the coastlands and the island territories where most of the previous civilizations were centered. This is why if you search under the bodies of water just a little ways out from your coastlines of today, you will find great temple structures, pyramids, and vast stone monuments. They are located all throughout the Mediterranean Sea, all around the coastlines of China, Japan, Indonesia, all around the coastlines of Europe and Africa. Because the waters have still not yet gone down to the level that they were when the previous civilization flourished from 30,000 to 12,000 years ago. Eventually, those who had settled in the highest points in Tibet, in the Andes, were able to bring their civilizations down from the highest peaks, down to where the breathing was easier, where the climate was more tolerable. But they kept visiting the tops of the mountains, for these had been the only safe places. The mountaintops had been the only place where they could live and where they could see the sun. And so they held those high mountain peaks sacred forevermore. This is why we find impressive stone structures on the very tops of mountains in some places around our world. Slowly, they began to rebuild again. They built some of the structures that we know today. They built Göbekli Tepe. The pyramids of Giza and the Sphinx were already there, having been constructed even before the great cataclysms of 36,000 years ago. But now they built many of the great temples of Egypt that we know today. They also built Stonehenge and Kalanish. Sacsayhuaman and Machu Picchu were already there. Tiwanaku was already there. The great stone buildings in North America, which today we have not found yet, were already there. They built new structures, including all of the pyramids in the Mayan, Aztec, and Olmec lands. There are great structures buried beneath the Amazon rainforest, which have mostly not been discovered. Those were already there, built between 30,000 and 12,000 years ago. This time around, the humans were so deeply traumatized by these multiple devastations that were now in their living memory, that were now in their mythologies and their concepts of how life and the universe function, that they had trouble moving forward with their knowledge. And so we see that they built great things between approximately 12,000 to 9,000 years ago. They established magnificent cultures in Anatolia, in Sumeria, in Egypt, in what is now known as Ireland and Scotland, as well as the pre-Incan cultures of Peru and Ecuador. But they were plagued with a deep feeling of inadequacy, and so their consciousness fell. We see that the more recent structures in Egypt, Sumeria, the Americas, and so on are more poorly done. The newer hieroglyphs and writings are much less refined than the older ones that came from 12,000 to 9,000 years ago, when they were still carrying the height of knowledge from before the cataclysm. And humanity has fallen now, over many thousands of years since that time, into a state of doubt, into a state of mistrust. Always before, when the great civilizations were built up, they were built up with the knowledge of magic, with a profound understanding of the forces of nature. But if you look around your world today, the societies that have been built up are not based on these principles at all. The societies that exist today are extractive, destructive, at the very foundation of their nature. And this is because humankind has created for itself a kind of innate doubt and overwrought humility because of knowing how they had brought down the destruction of civilizations in the past. They stopped trusting themselves. They stopped trusting in their magic. They stopped trusting in the cosmos to protect and provide for them. They began to see the cosmos as the source of the most terrible traumas and afflicting events, instead of being the place where the gods and the highest intelligence were located, which they had always known and trusted previously. Humans felt completely alone and forsaken in the universe. In fact, they came to believe that they were indeed alone, that there was no other life in the universe, that there was no other intelligence anywhere save for themselves, and the humans themselves felt essentially like small, helpless children by this time. As a result of these multiple cataclysms from the past, having sent many shockwaves of trauma and fear throughout the entire human population, humans have now built up, once again, vast civilizations, but civilizations that are completely out of alignment with who humans actually are. These civilizations today do not reflect our true ability as creator beings. The societal structures that we see in our world today are focused on violence and hatred and division. There has actually never been a set of civilizations before that has been so depraved as what we see today, so focused on the false and incorrect values, having completely forgotten their connection to the earth, their connection to the cosmos and the great central sun. But what is different about this time is that the humans are going to force their own awakening. The humans are actually causing all of the physical destruction this time. So no comet, no meteor will be needed. Instead, this time, the humans are bringing all of the destruction down upon themselves. The beings who live in the great central sun are watching us very, very carefully. For it is important that if the slate must be wiped clean, that it is not done with weapons of mass destruction, because that would reverberate throughout the cosmos and would affect many other planets and maybe even other galaxies as well. So they cannot let that occur. But what they would allow is this event that is happening, that has never occurred before on the earth, where the humans are awakening to their own magic out of the darkness and back into the light of their own accord. It is as if the forces of nature, the forces of natural order and cosmic law, are rising up within the hearts of certain humans on the planet, who are becoming way showers, who are becoming healers, who are studying the ancient knowledge, who are connecting with the earth, who are studying the stars and the planets, and who are bringing back in a very organic and intentional way the knowledge from the deep past about how to create positive magic on the earth once again. This kind of uprising, this kind of change, great waves of awakening sweeping across the planet, is greatly favored by those highest consciousness beings who live in the great central sun. They are watching, they are observing, and they want to keep us protected. So great amounts of help and support are now being sent to the earth to facilitate this great awakening and remembrance that is occurring. There are many of those beings from other galaxies and even some of those from the great central sun who are volunteering to come here and to help facilitate the awakening, to help us heal our mental structures, our nervous systems, our DNA structures, our belief systems, to bring us back into connection with our hearts. For ultimately, the heart must reign as the highest intelligence of the human being. Whenever the mind is believed to be the seat of the intelligence, humans will go astray. But when they recognize that the heart is truly the seat of that greatest intelligence, they will succeed. And they will create tremendously beautiful cultures and civilizations and ways of life that are aligned with life, that are aligned with love and oneness and the highest principles of the universe. This is the potential that humans hold at this time. Those out in the cosmos who do not want to interfere, but who do want to support and uplift us, are sending help in all the ways that they can that would not be termed or deemed too much interference. They truly want us to succeed. They created us because of our very high potential to create magnificent ways of living and being that, as they imagined, might be even beyond what the Creator could dream of. And as they have watched us over time, there has been this oscillation between high levels of technology external to the human and high levels of technology internal to the human. The indigenous peoples on the earth who have stayed deeply connected with the earth and her cycles and seasons, and the cycles and seasons of the cosmos above, are the ones who have upheld the highest levels of internal technology. Technology that does not cause any destruction. Technology that only causes a high level of consciousness and the ability to be creator beings in a gentle and peaceful way that is aligned with natural order and cosmic law. So as we remember ourselves now, we have the choice. We have the ability to turn away from the external technology, which is to some extent showing us our capabilities, but in a false externalized way. And we now have the option to choose to reconnect with our internal technologies. These are the very same internal technologies which allowed the ancient people to lift the stones of the Great Pyramid of Giza with no effort at all, simply by using their minds, which allowed the ancient indigenous peoples of North America and Europe and Siberia and Africa and other places to connect with the highest principles of creation and to live in reciprocal alignment with the environment around them, which allowed them to live in peace and harmony and joy and pleasure, recognizing that the earth, this precious jewel of a planet, is a paradise if we just let her, our mother, be who she really is, without trying to change her and alter her with all of our external technology. When we let the earth be who she really is, and she blossoms forth with trees and flowers and life force and infinitely beautiful types of abundance, then we get to be a part of that. That is when true joy and oneness and love and compassion can be continually springing up in our hearts. And we can live more simply in an external way, but much more richly within ourselves and in our vast experience of life and all of its possibilities. And so this is our potential now. This is the great awakening, the great remembering of our true heart consciousness that is coming back into our awareness. And we must shift our ways now from living in an extraction-oriented, aggression and violence-oriented, external technology-oriented world. We can shift now back into our inner technology, back into our hearts, back into peace and love, and recognizing the solidarity and oneness of all beings. For we are all so woven and interconnected, and the fate of any beautiful frog or bird or blade of grass or drop of water is intricately interwoven with your own fate. We are all one here on this planet, and in fact, in the entire universe. And as we come back into the memory of that oneness, we can live in the way we were always meant to. We can advance our inner technologies so that we will be holding magic beyond our wildest dreams and not be dependent on any external structures or technologies, but hold all of it within every one of us. We can raise our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren with this knowledge of the immense joy that is possible in a human life and the reciprocal connection with all of life and all of nature and all of the earth and all of the cosmos that is possible to experience in a human life. For that is how we are in our most exalted state of being. This is our potential now. And so we are invited to reach toward this magnificence. We are invited to open our hearts, to stop depending so much on our minds, and lean into the vast awakening that is naturally occurring, that is not being forced by any external pressures, that is happening within the hearts of so many here on earth as we are humbly remembering and returning to the truth of all that we truly are. And that is the end of the transmission. I will share with you that as I was coming out of that very deep meditative state and started opening my eyes and so on, this sentence came through very, very strongly. And so I wanted to include it as well. And this sentence is, we must develop our inner technologies, for that is where our true power will always be. And so I invite you to reflect on this transmission in whatever way feels right for you. I've had an interesting time in listening to it and rewriting it and rereading it. It still, for me, holds so much power, and I hope it does for you as well. And again, I would love to know in the comments, what do you think of all this? What are your thoughts? What are your reflections? What did it move in you? And as we close here, I will invite you to say the alchemical prayer with me if that feels aligned for you. And this is something that I share in most of my classes. It's a prayer that was given to me by my guides many years ago when I began working with alchemy. And the prayer is, dear universe, please send us all of the things that we need and most deeply desire that we do not even yet know are possible. Much love, everybody. I wish you all a beautiful, beautiful day and a beautiful 2024.